You asked us in the comments, can you tell us how many evictions are coming? We're going to show you where you can find the number of renters who are behind in your area or anywhere across the nation. Plus, we're going to cover how much rental assistance has gone out, because this is a key factor that will prevent evictions. Plus, stick around to the end where we dive in and show you how the state of California is doing on distributing rental assistance. Hey there. Christian Walsh with Wire Associates. We're real estate agents based in Southern California, helping tenants and landlords and buyers and sellers navigate these crazy days in California and beyond. This video is inspired by a comment from AJNL Fair. We appreciate you leaving comments. AJNL Fair was curious on the number of evictions coming, preferably in Southern California, also wanting to know if there was a way to tell whether it was single family or apartments. That was a great question. So we're going to dive in and we're going to show you how you can track the number of renters behind in your area. And yes, you can dive down into Southern California. We're going to show you how to do that in different regions across the nation. As far as whether it's apartments or houses where the folks are behind, there's no easy way to tell in the data we're going to show you. And there's no easy way to necessarily find that data. But what I will tell you is that this has been a very difficult time for landlords that are considered mom and pops. So smaller landlords, and smaller landlords tend to own houses and small multifamily buildings. So there are a lot of properties like these that potentially could be going through eviction. As for why AJNL Fair was asking this question, we can only surmise, but one of the things we expect is that he or she is interested in tracking what's going to happen to the market. So the evictions could potentially lead to disgruntled property owners who decide to sell. Plus, there's also dovetails into foreclosures as well, as some of these properties may end up in foreclosure. You're going to want to track foreclosures and evictions for the housing market into 2022 and beyond, so make sure you subscribe to this channel for the most honest and up-to-date real estate advice. So if you're ready to dive into the data, hit that like button and let's get started. So let's dive into the data to see if we can get some numbers and wrap our head around just where evictions could potentially be in the United States coming up. So this is the National Equity Atlas Rent Debt in America dashboard. And this is a powerful tool that uses data from the Census Bureau's Household Pulse Survey, which I'll show you, give you a brief look at that. We've given you a brief look in the past, but I'll show it to you again. And we're gonna look at the total amount of estimated debt out there and the total number of folks who are behind. And what's great is you can dive into local areas, you can dive into different states, different cities, different areas, just to see how bad the problem is in your local area. This is based on data from the Census Household Pulse Survey from between July 21st and August 2nd. So this data that they're using is actually old news by now and does not reflect the time when the CDC Eviction Moratorium is over. And I'll show you in the Pulse Survey why that matters. But let's dive in, let's take a look. So the total estimated debt for renters who are behind is almost $17 billion in the nation. And there's two ways to think of this, and it's important to remember that there's two sides to this. That's renters are behind $17 billion and landlords haven't been paid $17 billion. So that's a crazy dollar amount. Landlords are going through tough times because they haven't received their money, just as tenants are going through tough times due to COVID. So it's important to keep that perspective. Another thing I'd like to point out is that number, that total estimated debt of about $17 billion, is about a third of that $46 billion that's going out as rental assistance. Now the first batch already went out and is being distributed. The other important tool in here is the relief map, and this shows how much of the funds have been distributed so far, and that 24 and change reflects the first round of rental assistance that went out. And you can see of those funds that almost $5 billion have gone out across the nation. That's a drop in the bucket. There's still a whole lot more. We need over 3 times to go out based on the estimated total US rental debt. So this is a cool tool to see how the funds are being distributed. And there is one state that's a standout in distribution of rental assistance, and you may not guess that state, but it is actually Texas. So kudos to Texas for doing a great job of getting the funds out. And in fact, they're going to be getting more rental assistance funds. So the Fed is held some of the funds back on the second round, and they're going to be able to distribute those to the areas that need them most and the areas that have given out the funds already. So some of those funds are going to be going to the state of Texas to replenish their coffers. So great job, Texas. The debt dashboard allows you to get a quick overview. You can search by the entire United States. So that's your reference line there. You can go to state data and you can see the whole state data. And it also has it broken down into metro areas. So for example, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Santa Ana area, you can dive in and see how it compares to the national levels for the estimated rental debt. But you can see that there's $1 billion that's needed in that area, 267,000 households who are behind on rent in that metro area. So that is a significant amount of need. The other important thing to realize, in the state of California, we have AB 832, which is the latest version of the eviction moratorium. So that while the CDC eviction moratorium is over, and in a lot of these states in the nation, folks can be evicted now, even though rental assistance hasn't gone out. But in the state of California, you can't be evicted yet. New York just renewed theirs, and there's a few other spots as well. So there's definitely a big need to get those funds out to landlords as soon as possible, and tenants who need assistance with utilities as well, which the funds can be used for. So AJNL Fair, I appreciate your comment, and you were interested in Southern California specifically. You can do this in your areas as well, but you can zoom in and start to select the counties and use the control button, and it'll start to add up the numbers. So you can see that when you start to add these up, what it'll do is it'll sum it up and show you that in Southern California, we have over 400,000 households who are behind. So you can do that in your neck of the woods as well and play with this powerful tool. One important point to note on here is we see about $17 billion in rental debt that's owed to landlords, and we see that over 6 million households are behind on rent. This doesn't mean that every single one of these 6 million plus households will be evicted. They are at risk of eviction, and depending where they are, may have no protection from an eviction moratorium. Since the CDC eviction moratorium is over at the national level, some states and local areas, like California, New York, and others, they have local eviction moratoria that are preventing the evictions. Of these households, over 6 million, Goldman Sachs did a recent estimate and estimates about 750,000 of these households are at risk of eviction this year. We'll see ultimately what the numbers end up being for evictions in the nation, but just note that having so many evictions running through the court systems will become a de facto eviction moratorium and slow things down as well. So we will keep tracking this number to see the actual number of evictions that we have. And as promised, here's another look at the household pulse survey that comes from the Census Bureau. They've been doing this throughout the pandemic, and this is where some of the data is coming from for the dashboard we were just looking at. This is another helpful tool for you to take a look at to get a feeling for where things are headed for evictions and foreclosures in particular. And there's several different categories that you can filter by. There's surveys that are literally sent out and returned, and the data is crunched. So we are currently looking at the likelihood of eviction or foreclosure survey. And these are percentages of adults in a household who are not current on rent or a mortgage, where eviction or foreclosure in the next 2 months is either very likely or somewhat likely. So that's what the survey responders are saying, is that in the next 2 months they feel like they're going to be foreclosed or evicted. Now what's interesting is now we're just starting to move forward on foreclosures, and now we're also just starting to move forward on evictions. So this data is finally going to reflect the end of foreclosure moratoria and the end of eviction moratoria. And over here you can see that the data that we're seeing in here reflects August 18th through August 30th, which is almost a full month later than the data we were just looking at the National Rent Debt Dashboard. But still, August 30th, the eviction moratorium was in place. So this is old news. But you can see the sheer number who are afraid of eviction coming evictions and foreclosures coming. So in the United States, at the end of August, there were over 5 million households that were worried about eviction or foreclosure. And this is broken down by state, so you can see the states where they feel this pressure the most. Keep watching this data. This will give you a real pulse, as they call it, on where things are headed for evictions and foreclosures as folks continue to feel the pressure. Some should feel the pressure relieved from the eviction side as their back rent is paid, as the rental assistance money goes out. So we should see that number reduce. This data, we're going to see more movement, is my prediction, in the Pulse survey than we've seen throughout the eviction moratorium. We'll see that in the next few months. So I encourage you to visit this. I have a link below, of course, like I always do, so that you can visit here. Let me know in the comments what you're going to be tracking, what you're going to be looking for in your area. Let me know below. And thanks for sticking around to the end. We told you we'd give you a quick update on how the state of California is doing in getting those rental assistance funds out. Remember, the rental assistance funds, the $46+ billion given out at the national level, is going to be the way to stabilize households. It's going to stabilize renters and landlords who are desperately in need of these funds. Ultimately, lost rent is lost income for a landlord. So the state of California just had a big announcement. I'll go through that in a moment. But this new dashboard, and I did a video on this, shows how well they're doing. And this has been updated for Monday the 13th, and it shows some exciting improvements that over $500 million in funds at the state level have been distributed. This doesn't include local distribution of funds. This is only funds distributed at the state level. And over $2 billion in the state of California have been requested. And California just hit an important milestone. This was just released on Monday the 13th, stating that California has paid and approved $1 billion in assistance, and this has helped out more than 44,000 households throughout the state of California. So this is great, great news. So they're getting those funds out and other municipalities in the state of California, like Los Angeles, are turning to the state to help distribute the funds. Especially Los Angeles, there's a ton of need, as we saw in the rental dashboard. So what's great is the state can redirect funds that aren't being used in other areas if everyone's been served, and they can redirect those to areas of big need like Los Angeles. So that's what's going to happen at the state level. It's definitely important to get funds so that landlords can get caught up at the same time the tenants are getting out of debt. So leave your comments below, ask us any other questions you have, and they may be featured in an upcoming video. And of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel, where we'll keep more content coming on foreclosures and evictions. Not to mention, you need to subscribe to our free weekly email newsletter, where we cover topics like this, plus a whole lot more for tenants and landlords and buyers and sellers. We have a link below so you can do that. This has been Christian Walsh with Wire Associates, and we appreciate you.